Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Kudos to everybody. Greetings, my good friends, and newly arrived listeners and subscribers to RushLimbaugh.com. We're setting subscription records out there. I just heard from Coco this morning. And we're ecstatic to hear that. I'll explain it in detail. Let's keep going here, folks. Friday it is.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday!
Yes, sir, we're destined to be a barn burner today. Open Line Friday, this is where callers, if you're new to the program, on Friday we let callers go wherever they want to go in terms of what they talk about. We sort of control it. I'm a benevolent dictator kind of guy. It's my show, so we kind of control the things people talk about just to keep everything focused so they don't get boredom seeping in out there. But on Friday, I broom all that and end up taking one of the greatest career risks ever taken by modern American major media figure, and that is turning the content portion of the program over to amateurs, as opposed to me, a highly trained broadcast specialist. Great to have you here. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program's 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. I was almost right. My gut was telling me yesterday that this thing was not over when the show ended yesterday, that the possibility of Trump showing up at the debate was not over. We've learned that the moderators, the moderating crew, Brett Baer, Chris Wallace, Megyn Kelly, even as late as 8:45, thought Trump might bop over. There were negotiations going on all during the day. Trump was never serious about it, and I figured it out when I learned that Trump made a demand of Fox News, $5 million donation to his veterans group. I mean, there was no way Fox can do that. You throw that demand out as a way of shutting the thing down. So, Trump wasn't there. He was down the road a couple of miles doing his veterans event, an entirely different Trump event. It was unlike any Trump event that has taken place. Back in the debate center, there was Ted Cruz in the center of the space. He had the center podium, which meant that he was going to be the focus of attention. He became the front runner by default when compared to the other people in the room and where they stand. Trump the front runner depending on polls, but he wasn't there. That automatically made Cruz the target. I think Cruz is going to be the target anyway, simply because the establishment, made up of a lot of people, do not want Cruz or Trump to get the nomination. So with Cruz in there, without Trump to take any incoming, all the incoming could be focused on Cruz, and they tried quite a bit. If you didn't know any better, you might think when this is all over. Let me just jump forward to the end of this and ask you all a question. First, did you guys in there watch this whole thing? Okay, but let me ask you a question. Because my setup, I was watching both. I had the debate on the main TV in my library, and I had my computer set up, my laptop in front of me on the desk to be able to make instantaneous notes and observations should it have been necessary. And to the left of that, I had my iPad Pro. And on the iPad Pro, I had YouTube streaming the Trump event. And I was going back and forth. I can't keep the audio of both up at the same time because I would be able to hear nothing. So I had to go back and forth. The Trump event was not closed captioned. At least I couldn't find a way to turn it on. But the debate was. So I relied on closed captioning and listened to the Trump event until a couple things happened there. I bumped out of it, kept the video on. You would have to ask me about battery life, wouldn't you? Okay, I'll just tell you. My iPad Pro, which with my normal usage, 5 days between charges, I lost 60% of the charge just in the period of time Trump was on YouTube. That's a massive battery in that thing. I mean, every device I've got is churning battery. Anyway, I really don't want to get distracted by that because I literally do get ticked off. I just do. Not because of that. It's because what efforts or not efforts, whatever, to deal with it. But anyway, so I'm watching and going back and forth. And then I learned that CNN is not going wall to wall with the Trump event. They're bumping in and out of it. C-SPAN did. So I knew immediately that there could never be a ratings comparison, which people were considering and looking forward to. But there couldn't be because CNN didn't stick with it. Plus, they had their commentators chatting over it while it was happening. So it was not wall-to-wall the Trump event on CNN. MSNBC did some of it. It was over on C-SPAN. So ends up the Fox debate drew 13 million, which is a steady audience, a fair audience, but it's nowhere near what could have been. And what could have been, that's what was telling me, my gut, that Trump was going to show. The opportunity on both sides, Fox and Trump, to hit 35, 40 million people is what I thought both of them might, at the end of the day, figure out. From that standpoint alone, it would make sense to do. So anyway, back to my question. You all watched the debate. And you had your opinions, I'm sure, as the debate went on as to who was doing better than you expected, worse than you expected. It was a good night, bad night. And then immediately after it was over, Fox goes to the Frank Luntz focus group. And the Frank Luntz focus group makes it clear that among that group of people, there was only one winner last night, and it wasn't even close. And it was Marco Rubio. And to put an exclamation point on that, the way Luntz did it, he sets it up by asking his focus group, so how many of you arrived here not intending to support Rubio? And a couple of hands went up. Okay, now the debate is over, Luntz asked his group. How many of you are going to support Rubio now? Practically every hand went up. I said, what? Okay, I'm just, folks, sharing observations with you. Let me do an ABC. Mr. Snerdley, do you think Rubio won the debate? You did, okay. Dawn, did you think Rubio won the debate? That's 2 no's. Brian, do you know who Rubio is? Brian didn't watch. Okay, so I was just kidding. He knows. He knows who Rubio is. I'm going to go through it here in a minute, person by person. It was a totally different dynamic without Trump there. I mean, it changed the atmosphere of the thing. I think it changed the behavior of all the participants. It was. In fact, there was one point, and I mentioned the Trump event down the road was a totally different Trump event, and I don't know if the people that showed up for that event ended up being disappointed or not, but Trump was barely in it. He turned the stage over to Huckabee and Rick Santorum at one point. Let them go on as long as they wanted. He stood on stage while they made their speeches. Interesting picture because those two guys are the last 2 Iowa caucus winners. And there's Trump up there on stage with them. And then he turned it over to the series of veterans. You know, he made his own speeches and he announced how much money he'd raised. But it was not a political campaign event in the sense that Trump has been doing them. It was clearly focused on his charity of the troops, fundraising, and counter. In fact, Trump even started his event 15. In fact, I'm going to tell you, I made a prediction. I was chatting with some friends, instant message, going back and forth here. I chat, message, whatever it is. And when Trump didn't show up right at 9 o'clock, I said, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's letting this thing establish on the pretext that people are going to get bored. Trump won't show up for 15 minutes. He's going to wait until people watch the Republican debate. He knows people are going to go there first. And when he thinks they're getting bored, that's when he'll walk out. And then should I admit this? Yeah, I'll go ahead. I then further texted to one of my compatriots last night. I said, my prediction is that the first time Ben Carson is asked a question is when Trump will come out. And by golly, by gosh, if that isn't what happened. So, I mean, I think Trump chose what he would consider to be a low point, low energy. Enough time had gone by, maybe people get bored, then he bops out. And he even announces that he wanted to let them get started over there. That he didn't want to usurp anything they were doing. go ahead and let them get started, and then he comes out and does his event. There was a period of, it seemed like 30 minutes, when Trump was nowhere to be seen. The camera at the Trump event, like always, did not pan the room. It was constantly on the podium in the center of the stage. So after about 20 minutes of no Trump, I started asking myself, is he on his way across the street? Is he going to storm into that I mean, I've never seen this. It's a Trump event, and he's not on it. He had totally turned this over to his troops, the people that he's met along the way, who were doing their own speeches and so forth. I said, where's Trump? Well, it turns out he was there. He was always backstage, off to the side. It's just the cameras at that event were not showing Trump. And I was still the first, I guess, half hour, I kept thinking that I wouldn't be surprised if Trump shows up at the Republican debate, even when it was not even possible. I had the possibility wide open in my mind. Who did you think won the debate, Mr. Snerdley? If you didn't think that it was Rubio, who did? You think, okay, he says Trump. You think Trump won by not being there? It's just took all the oxygen out of the room, his absence. And so these guys end up destroying each other. Trump's not there. Trump did not get hit. They all did. They got hit by the moderators. They got hit by each other. Trump did not even get swung at last night. Not seriously. Some people tried to crack jokes. Cruz tried to crack a couple jokes. You think they fell flat? You think Cruz's jokes fell flat? Well, we'll get into all that. I'm going to have a brief time out here. That's just a little bit of the setup. We've got all kinds of analysis and audio sound bites of what other people think about this. Of course, that's not why you're here. You're here to find out what I think about it, and I'm not going to shirk from that responsibility. Oh, I did want to mention this is a great thing. You know, I never tout rushlimbaugh.com. I should, because it's so good, but I don't for reasons I have previous. It's not. It's that I have a qualm about just constantly saying, hey, folks, go to my website. Hey, folks, go look at what I say. Hey, folks, this self-promotion, this hucksterism, every time I see it done by others, I cringe. I imagine other people are. But what's happening here? This campaign is creating a new tune-in factor on this program, rivaling those in the past. We are having expansion here in geometric proportions, and it's bleeding over to the website. People are going there and liking what they are seeing, and they're signing up. And we have two sides. We have a paywall, and we have a free side. And rushlimbaugh.com is a veritable encyclopedia. You know, you got these people that write down what they think once or twice a week. I have 15 hours of spoken word every week, 3 hours a day, documented, transcripts, audio, video. It is a veritable encyclopedia. I was thinking the other day that if I wanted to put together a series, you know how these columnists put out books now and then of their columns over the years? What if I did a book that published many of my monologues over the 27 years? How many volumes would it require? It could be bigger than the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. That's how much content has been created here in 27 years. Remember, there are very few guests, statistically zero. And yet everything is transcribed and ends up being published at rushlimbaugh.com. And I tell you, for people to find it, they don't see anything like it because of the volume, because of the content. And it's, of course, not just me. It's everything I talk about is linked to as well. So it is encyclopedic, and it's exciting when people find it and sign up on their own without any sort of promotion, which I guess I'm kind of doing here now. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. We're revved up. We're ready to go into the weekend here on the EIB Network. Sit tight. So if you happen to be listening to BBC yesterday or last night, the British Broadcasting Company. There's a show called BBC GMT, BBC World's GMT. It's part of the BBC's World Service. And they have a host of this program, a guy named Stephen Sacker. Maybe it's Saker. I don't know. And he was talking with Terry Moran, who is the chief foreign correspondent, Terry Moran, ABC, which means he has a really nice trench coat. All foreign correspondents have to have really cool trench coats. Peter Jennings had one, and you have to wear it out there because when you're a foreign correspondent, and you got to smoke, or fake herbal cigarettes, or maybe the real things, but you gotta have the look. You spend all your time in bars after you've done the news. You find various exotic women to have affairs with. That's what a foreign correspondent does after your 30-second report on the weekly news and nightly news. So Terry Moran's talking to this guy at the BBC who's trying to understand Trump. He's trying to understand the American political system. So the host of this BBC show says to the foreign correspondent, ABC News' Terry Moran, if Donald Trump wins the Iowa caucus, can you see any of the other candidates mounting a real effective momentum, any kind of a serious challenge to Trump if Trump wins Iowa? Soundbite number 24. Coming up in 3, 2, 1.
This is a party that for a generation has been built for just such a candidate as Trump. Rush Limbaugh, the talk radio star for more than a generation, who has his own brand of blustering braggadocio and gleeful political incorrectness, has been one of the most powerful figures in this party for a long time. They have prized rudeness. This is a party that has been ready for Trump. He's picked up something that was there and run with it.
Do I need to translate this for you? According to the foreign correspondent at ABC, Terry Moran, I am Trump. Trump is simply following the lead of your host, Rush Limbaugh, blustering braggadocio, gleeful political incorrectness, and, of course, prized rudeness. There's no rudeness on this program. I'm the politest host. Go it, rude. You know, a liberal thinks you're rude when you criticize them. A liberal thinks you're rude if you tell jokes about them. You are not supposed to laugh at liberals. You're certainly not supposed to tell jokes about them. And if you know what's good for you, you won't even criticize them. That's all considered to be rude. But aside from that, if this guy Moran thinks this, then I will guarantee you a whole lot of other American drive-by media people are talking and chatting about this amongst themselves. Yeah, you know, Trump. This is what Limbaugh's been doing for over a generation, 27 years. Gets on there, brags about himself, greatest this, biggest that, sits up there, criticizes us, makes fun of us, tells jokes about minorities and so forth. Yeah, this guy's rude, man. It just paved the way for Trump. Trump sees what's going on, sees how successful it is, taps right into it. So one of these kind of little innocuous sound bites around 29 seconds gives a very sizable indication of what these people trying to figure out the Trump phenomenon ascribe it to. Now, of course, they miss it totally. They haven't the slightest idea. And remember, they're the smart ones in their minds. They're the ones with depth and nuance. And they haven't the slightest idea what the Trump campaign or ascendancy means. In terms of insider versus outsider, they haven't the slightest idea. They think it's all showbiz-related stuff. Back in a sec. Okay, before we get the audio soundbites of the debate and your phone calls, I'll just give it a little sketchy, really sketchy review of what happened. I thought the debate had an entirely different intensity level as I watched it without Trump. Everybody's very aware Trump's not there. Everybody's wondering what that's going to mean. They start asking themselves, okay, how does this feel as I watch it? Does it feel like something's missing? Is there some excitement, potential excitement we know is not going to happen? And even if it does, do we care? If a couple of candidates go after each other, we're going to get mad. If one of the moderators goes after a candidate, are we going to get mad like we would if Trump was there? These are all questions I was asking myself as this was starting. And I assume that a lot of you were as well. I was also asking myself, okay, the commentary after this whole thing is over. You know, folks, I have another observation for you. I have often said that I believe it was, at first, this program, which started in 1988, which was the forerunner to the creation of a whole brand new alternative media, conservative media. I think the arrival of this program as the first national over-the-air media, broadcast media that was unabashedly conservative, and then the things that came afterward, other talk shows, the blogs, Fox News, I think all of that brought the mainstream media out from behind the curtain. And I've always believed that the drive-bys were no longer able to hide their objectivity. My program flushed out media liberals who had successfully hidden their political agendas. And as such, partisanship has become the order of the day, no matter where you go in the media. The so-called mainstream media, very few of them today even make a pretense at being objective. It's so not true now, but it used to be the way that they all operated. We're objective, we're fair, we're unbiased. When they were the only game in town, they were able to hide and camouflage their liberalism and make it look like the natural order of the day. Then this program comes along and others following it, and it exposed all that, and they were flushed out. They could no longer hide their political agenda. Partisanship became clear as media types couldn't resist getting into the open and front opinion business. They relished it. They relished dropping the cloak of objectivity. And the competition was on. And that's why I think the partisanship has gotten worse. I do. I think there were obviously more peaceful times before this program started and its offspring. And by peaceful, there wasn't any resistance. I mean, people who thought the media was liberal talked about it around their kitchen tables, and that was it. Or they talked about it at church. But that's as far as it went. If you thought the media was biased in favor of Democrats, anti-Republican, it stayed with you and whoever you discussed it with. Well, once that became, or once a national forum for that point of view hit the airwaves, this program, all bets are off. They can no longer hide. They were flushed out. Some of them some of the drive-bys loved getting into the opinion journalism business. Some of them loved the fact they didn't have to hide it anymore, didn't have to fake it. A very few continue to operate under the phony false premise that there is no liberal bias and that everybody's fair and objective. I think Trump is doing the same thing to certain elements of the right-leaning media. People have made the mistake that there are two different and very distinct media. The drive-bys, the mainstream, and all of us in the, whatever you want to call it, the new media, conservative media, alternative media. But within that universe of alternative media, new media, so-called conservative media, there are their own factions. And some of those people have been masquerading as conservative media, masquerading as conservative think tanks or conservative institutions. Trump has come along and, for whatever reason, flushed out the not quite so conservative media types, and their agenda is now exposed. So what has happened here is that agendas are being dragged out of the shadows everywhere, all over the place, kicking and screaming, and people are learning, that places they thought were conservative may not be. People they thought were conservative may not be quite as conservative as they thought. Maybe some of them are much more tied to the establishment than was originally thought. And I think And by the way, this is not a secret way of praising Trump. Again, it's another observation. Because all of the agendas are being exposed now, and people are capable of identifying them. And because they're aware of who has an agenda and what the agenda is, they know whether to be suspicious or doubtful or to sign on and support it or what have you. And my point is, just because we don't see partisanship doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that some people are prone to being ignorant and making false assumptions. I think it's all good. I think it's all healthy. I think people being able to hide their agendas behind firewalls, paywalls, phony walls, whatever it is, I don't think it's good. I think whoever and however all this stuff gets flushed out so that you're listening to commentator, reporter, wherever you find them, columnist, if you know they've got it. This is my whole point about identifying the ideology of people, and particularly identifying liberals and liberalism, because nobody likes what they do. Nobody likes living in the circumstances created by liberals. But they vote for them. And they vote for whatever the host of reasons. We know what they are. The Republican brand has been damaged greatly for a whole host of reasons. And then there's the compassion angle. Well, I think I'm helping people. The Democrats care about people. They love people. They don't want people to suffer. They're for the minorities and they're for the victims and all that rot gut, which is not true. It's just window dressing. So people vote for this stuff. I mean, look at Obama's approval numbers now. Have you seen Bill Clinton's approval numbers? Bill Clinton's approval numbers have plummeted 39%. The Democrat Party is more worried about that than they are what's happening with Hillary's numbers. Because Bill was always the firewall, the stopgap. Bill was always what was going to save Hillary. His numbers are plummeting. He's not drawing crowds. He's having trouble drawing crowds like Hillary had to draw crowds and couldn't when her book tour was happening. A host of reasons for it as well, not the least of which is that we've got a whole new generation of people here who are not dazzled by the Clintons, who didn't grow up dazzled and mesmerized and idolizing them and so forth. So I think all this being flushed out is good. You know, I did something last night watching the debate that I always try to avoid doing because it's easy and it's maybe too easy, makes it a little cheap. And I've always resented it when people try it on me. And what I mean is, you watch the debate, you say, damn, you know what I would have said? I would have said X. If that asked me, it's a way people criticize the people in the debate, since we're talking about that. But it could be anybody appearing on TV, radio, or whatever. You hear them. No, you know what you really should have said? And people run around thinking they've got all the answers. They know what they would have said. People on TV are choking or what have you. But I found myself doing that last night, not about specific people. But I said, there's something missing in this debate. For me, there was something I wanted to see. I want to see at every debate. There was something missing. And it probably is because there are moderators who take debates. I mean, let's face it. The moderators, all of them, always try to turn the combatants against each other. Or in some cases, the moderators try to turn the combatants against the moderators. And the moderators want to become part of the story. As such, the real problem in this country gets touched on now and then, but it's never the focal point. And to me, I was saying to myself last night, gosh, if I were on that stage, especially if Trump's not there, if I were on that stage, I don't care what they ask me. Every time I open my mouth, I would start reminding people why they're scared, why things are going wrong, and I would blame the big L. The big L, liberalism would have come out of my mouth, and I would have tied it to current events, current statistics, current circumstances. Because that's really what we're trying to stop, is it not? What all of this is about at the end of the day is stopping what Obama started. Now, arguably, lots of people started it before Obama. He's just the most radical. But the point is, this has to be stopped. And instead what we get, and I don't know how you do it, how do you avoid it with current debate structure and format, but what you get mostly is gotcha. Like last night they played video for Cruz and Rubio, showing them making ostensibly conflicting statements in the past versus what they're saying now. And the demand is, so, were you lying then or are you lying now? Is the basic thrust of the question. You mean it back then or do you not mean it then? Do you mean it now? And so you have a bunch of people defending themselves, defending their positions, which they've got no choice. They're forced into this. And this is not a specific criticism. Again, I'm just observing it. This is the way these network-moderated debates are always going to be. And there were only two candidates that I saw that had video histories shown to them. That would be Cruz and Rubio. They happened to be the two front runners, right? There wouldn't have been an opportunity. Maybe they would have tried it with Trump. That was essentially the first question Megyn Kelly ever asked him, was one of those without video. Mr. Trump, in the past, you've said X and Y and Z about women, and we knew what happened. But so it's not a criticism. It's just a wish. A wish, because I think what we're all united against is stopping what's happening, the destruction of the American economy, the destruction of the American healthcare system, the attack, the straightforward frontal attack on the American culture, on decency and morality, all of these things, the out of control and destructive spending for which a due bill is going to be presented at some point down the road. And people have legitimate fears that that bill's going to be presented when their kids or grandkids become adults. And it's going to stand in the way of anybody creating a nice living for themselves with enough wealth to be able to save money to send kids to college. These are things that people are genuinely afraid of. And while there's an understanding in a debate that that's what the people on the stage are aligned against, they end up having to defend themselves on the minutia, many times, of policy. Like who's really against amnesty and who's really not, and who's tricking Republican voters, who is really part of the establishment. And it's all relevant. But the objective here is to end up discrediting people to the point that they no longer survive. And the real intent and the discovery of, do we have anybody on this stage? Is there anybody on this stage who really gets it, that this stuff that's has got to be stopped? So that's like a what if, a wish list for me as I watched this thing last night. And not just this one. I'm a little long. It's time to take another obscene profit time out here on the EIB network. Stay there, folks. We're coming. This is unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, apparently the movie 13 Hours is being written about as a flop at the box office. And I'm being blamed for this. Cookie just sent the audio soundbite. This on KTTV Good Day L.A. in Los Angeles. The guest is the editor of Rotten Tomatoes, which, what is that? That's a rating website where individuals can rate movies and TV shows. The guy's name is Matt Atchity. He's the editor-in-chief. They're talking about the movie 13 Hours, the Benghazi movie. And the KTTV Eyeball News co-host Steve Edwards and the Rotten Tomatoes editor-in-chief have this exchange.
The movie 13 Hours, which filmmakers hoped would be like Sniper, a lot of conservative radio station hosts, etc., were getting behind this movie. It didn't drive the box office?
It didn't. Not really. It did okay, but not the way Rush Limbaugh would have you believe, right? Like, everybody wanted to turn this into show what the Americans want to see and, let's do a conservative movie.
So this guy from 13 Hours, you might not have heard it because of the crossover, the crosstalk. He said Rush Limbaugh would have you believe, like everybody wanted to turn this show into what the Americans wanted to see. And, let's do a conservative movie. And so he's trying to say that I was one of the big promoters of the movie, and I'm so out of touch, the American people don't care to go watch a conservative movie about Benghazi, and this proves it. And there's only one problem. I haven't seen it, and I haven't said 2 words about it. One way or the other, I have not seen the movie. If you want to know the truth, Paramount, this is the weirdest thing, it's never happened before. Paramount offered a DVD, closed captioned. I have to have that or I can't hear dialogue. And a week later, it hadn't arrived. So we checked, and we know Paramount has withdrawn the offer. They don't want to send the DVD. They're worried about piracy and so I never got the DVD. I never saw this. I haven't said one word about it because I haven't seen it. Well, I may have commented on what other people have said, but I have not seen this thing to review it, to promote it, diddly squat. If I had seen it and promoted it and liked it, there might be a little different story out there, but I haven't seen it. I got movies on 3,000 screens now. It says 13 Hours. Just got added to 528 theaters, but I'm just telling you, had I seen it and liked it, they wouldn't be talking about it being a flop. I guarantee you that. There's a lesson to be learned here. Anyway, back in a jiffy. So you guys, none of you saw the undercard debate, the pregame meal. Jim Gilmore. But that's not, there was something really strange that happened in that one. I'm still not quite understanding it. What?
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
If none of you saw it, never mind. Greetings and welcome back. Rush. Carly Fiorina just launched into Martha McCallum, and I didn't see it. I got an email. Whoa, Carly Fiorina just jumped all over Martha McCallum. Okay, so I grabbed my remote, and I zapped back. I said, rewind 2 minutes. And that wasn't quite enough, so I said, rewind. I finally saw it, and well, what happened was she was asking Senator Rubio about why he hadn't attended the most recent pro-life family march, whatever big deal they do on their anniversary. Santorum, what'd I say? She asked Santorum why he hadn't attended it. And he said, well, I've been campaigning here, and there's some other things going on with family, whatever it was he said. And then it went on and got to Fiorina, and she said, I just think, I have to say something. I cannot believe what just happened. You know, the media, the game is rigged. The game is rigged, and we just saw evidence of it. And she looked at Martha McCallum. I cannot believe that you would ask a question daring to challenge the pro-life credentials of Rick Santorum. And I thought, well, was it that? She just asked, and he didn't even appear flustered. She said, why weren't you there? But anyway, Fiorina interpreted it as a question challenging the fact that Santorum may not really be the big pro-lifer that he's made himself out to be. And Fiorina said, how dare you insinuate that? There's probably, she didn't say this, but there's probably none of us more pro-life, obviously so than Santorum. Why would you even go there? But it's one of those things where when wow, you should have seen what you just missed. It's okay, what is it? So your expectations are really hyped up. You turn back, you rewind and watch it. Well, Santorum didn't act flustered or offended. Not that I could tell. Anyway, welcome back, folks. It's great to have you here on the EIB network. The telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be with us. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. I'm going to start with debate soundbites here pretty soon and then get to your phone calls. If you're on hold, hang in there. Be patient. There's something here I have to mention because I don't want to put this off to the side. It has nothing to do with the debate. It has everything to do with current events in America, but it's about something that happened in Germany, and it's about the immigrants and the refugees and so forth. And I don't want to put this aside and not get to it, as I've been doing with things all week. The story is from New Delhi television. 40% of Germans say that Chancellor Angela Merkel should resign over her refugee policy. It's polling data. 40% of Germans want Angela Merkel to quit. They want her to resign. They want her to wave goodbye and leave over her refugee policy, a poll showed today, a sign of rising dissatisfaction with her welcoming stance towards people fleeing conflict in the Middle East and Africa. Angela Merkel, who enjoyed record-high popularity ratings early last year, has grown increasingly isolated in recent months as members of her conservative bloc, right, have pressed her to take a tougher line on asylum seekers, and European allies have dragged their feet on the issue. Responding to popular pressure, Merkel's conservatives and their left-leaning Social Democrat coalition partners agreed yesterday to tighten asylum rules. Here's my question. Let's review what happened. When the latest wave of refugees from war-torn Syria began, they were going through Greece and other European Union nations, and they were mostly male, military-aged men, as they were being described, very few women, very few crumb crunchers. And so there was suspicion. Why are these able-bodied, military-aged men fleeing their own countries rather than staying there and fighting for their own countries? Why are they leaving in droves? I mean, to the tune of tens of thousands, if not more. And then the next question, why in the world is Angela Merkel welcoming them? It was so bad. She was bragging about the openness of Germany, and she was bragging about the fact that they were going to have 800,000 of them a year that would be allowed to emigrate to Germany and eventually become citizens. And I don't know if it was stated, but the widely believed reason was that Germany's birth rate is below replacement levels for whatever reason. People are having kids, fewer kids, not at all, or more abortions are on the rise or whatever, but the birth rate is not high enough to maintain Germany's population as it is at present. And one of the dangers of that is that there aren't enough Germans being born who will grow up to do the work in the German economy necessary to keep it humming. And so the theory was that Angela Merkel is excited and she's welcoming because this is the immediate solution to the labor force problem. And when all this was going down, everybody was, she lost her mind? What the hell is she thinking? 800,000 a year and bragging about it? And then we started hearing what was happening in Cologne and other parts of Germany where these very refugees were engaging in massive amounts of abuse of women, even rape in some cases, so bad that they had to have seminars with them to find out why they thought, these men, why they thought that they had open season on German women. I'm not making this up. Typical of liberals. Here comes a bunch of foreign refugees. They immediately start mistreating the women in the country. And the powers that be in Germany say, gosh, what did we do to cause this? Just like after 9/11, so many of our elites, gee, what did we do to make them so mad? They wanted to blow up the World Trade Center. In other words, why did they hate us? What did we do? Is it our fault? So they were having seminars with these men, and these men were saying, well, hey, when we go someplace and we see these women with bare shoulders in our country, If that's ever permitted, it's a signal. Or when a woman smiles at you, that's a come on. These guys were telling the German officials this. So they were sitting down and having seminars with these immigrants saying, no. You must understand that when Germans dance, it doesn't mean that they want to have sex in minutes. And when a woman smiles at you, it's just nothing more than, hi, how are you? But the question, why did she, in the first place, why did she act like she did at the very beginning? When the whole process started, here she was practically alone in being excited about it, bragging about it, talking about 800,000, and everybody could see this is going to be the ruination of Germany. Everybody could see this is the absolute wrong thing. Why did she do it? And the answer to that question, I think, is the same answer that we would get when we ask the same question here. What in the world is our establishment doing? What does the Chamber of Commerce not get? What do all of these comprehensive immigration reform people not get? Why don't they understand that millions of illegals who can't speak English, who have no education and no job skills, how in the world does that help this country? What in the world are they thinking? We're asking the same question. So in Angela Merkel's case, why do it? I have no doubt. I think the answer is multi-pronged. I think she did it in large part because she wanted to show the world that she was not racist or bigoted and that she wanted to show compassion. It echoes the same sentiments that we get here from leftists in this country. Well, if somebody is war-torn and beat up and poor and they want to come to my country to improve their lives, I am not going to be the one they say they can't come. Something like that. Or maybe something even more hideous. Now, we know what it is in this country. We know the Chamber of Commerce is cheap labor, and we know the Democrats are looking at it as a voter registration drive. And everything else they say is a lie. It isn't about improving the U.S. economy. It's not about jobs Americans won't do. It isn't about compassion, which is what they really rely on. I mean, that's what the Democrats always rely on to gain a moral superiority for every one of their policies. This claim it's all rooted in compassion, understanding, and fairness. You leave this country and the Constitution in their hands and it becomes a suicide pact. That's what the American people know, and that's why amnesty, illegal immigration is and is going to remain the primary seminal issue throughout this presidential campaign. Anyway, in Germany, they're now saying, wait a minute, they want her to quit. They want this stopped. There was nothing good that was ever going to happen. Everybody knew it at the beginning, but she did it anyway. Merkel did it anyway. I don't doubt she did it to curry favor with international partners like Obama, the United Nations. You know, Germany in Europe is the equivalent of the U.S. in the sense that whenever anybody's out of money, that's where they go to get it. And I think she has a little guilt complex about being one of the few countries in the European Union that's not in as dire straits as everybody else is. But it's senseless. And these are the supposed smartest, the best and brightest among us. You know, we heard yesterday what's happening in Sweden and what's going on in Denmark. In Denmark, they're seizing the property of these refugees and immigrants. Denmark, I mean, that's Crazy Bernie's ideal country. And they are seizing possessions and property because they can't afford to provide everything for these people. They can't afford to feed everybody. They can't afford to house everybody. They can't afford everybody's medical care. And yet the assumption is that it will be provided. Every one of these people arriving is assuming they're going to get someplace to live paid for. They're going to have clothes paid for. They're going to have school for their kids paid for if their kids come with them. They're going to have whatever they need. Medical care, it's going to be provided. That's the assumption they all arrive with. And I find it fascinating. All of these leftists in all of these European countries, these democratic socialist countries, are finally starting to realize they don't have the money for this. It's one thing when they do all this for their own citizens, I guess, who can vote. My point is, there's some common sense surfacing now in Europe over all this. And yet in this country, we keep hearing from people like Obama and others that we can't turn them away, and we must allow them in. That's who we are. We cannot allow our values to be compromised. Blah, blah, blah. Our values are not a suicide pact. All right, time out. Back after this break with your phone calls and debate sound bites and whatever else happens. Sit tight. This is Greg in Oakhurst, California. It's great to have you on the program, sir. Hello. You're up first today.
Hi, Rush. Long-time listener, 24/7 member. Been listening for 25 years, and I appreciate what you do, and thanks for taking my call.
You bet, sir.
Listen, I was just so upset with Megyn Kelly last night. I watch Fox News a lot, and, it's the first time that I can remember any network ever showing videotape of the candidates and then asking them to respond to themselves. And she did that to both Rubio and Cruz, and I guess you could say she did it because they are the leading two candidates at this point without Trump there. But the thing was that I was so upset about was when she asked Cruz to respond to what his video showed, she said, were you, what'd she say, were you acting then, or was that just an act? And then when he responded, she tried to act like, oh, no, I've got you here. And then immediately afterwards, on her show, if you were watching Fox and stayed with them, on her show, she more than once she said, when he responded and gave the same answer, she said, you're right. I did some heavy research, I think is what she said. I did some heavy research into that, and you're absolutely right. And she conceded the point that he made during the debate. Now, during the debate, there was a much larger audience, of course, than for her show. So she tried to show that she could stick him. She could really get him. But then during her show, she conceded that he was correct.
Yes, I'm quite aware of this fact that this happened. Not surprised you're upset about it. Not surprised it's the first call we're getting today about this. Because I've had any number of people reacting the way you have, and even making the point, okay, fine, so she finally figured it out and announced that he was right, but long after 90% of the audience was gone.
Right, exactly. And listen, Rush, I'm a Rubio supporter because I feel that he's got the best chance of beating Hillary, unless she's indicted, of course, which I hope. But I like Cruz more, I like his positions more, but I believe that Rubio is the person who can beat Hillary. And she went after both of them. But it really, even though I'm supporting Rubio, I wouldn't be disappointed, as I said, if Cruz got the nomination. But even though she went after both of them, she really tried to nail Cruz and then admitted that he was right later. It's so hypocritical. It's very upsetting.
Well, that's the larger point here is that I've had it said to me, if once, it's been 10 times, that people are a little worn out with these debates ending up being debates between the moderators and the candidates, not the debates between the candidates and the candidates themselves. And it comes across as gotcha. And, of course, the moderators say, no, our job is to vet these people for you. Our job is to expose them. Let me tell you something, Greg, for whatever, better or worse, what you saw last night is what journalism is taught to do and be. That's journalism. That's how it's taught. That's how it's practiced. And that's how people in it judge whether or not somebody's good at it. Can you expose a hypocrite? Can you speak truth to power? Can you destroy a powerful person who wants to have all kinds of power over the American people? Can you expose them as frauds or whatever else? That becomes, and it's in many ways always has been, what journalism really is. That's why I make jokes over the years about if you want to climb the ladder in journalism, go destroy some local guy in your town, and the Washington Post might hear about it and hire you.
Yes. Am I still on?
Yeah, you're still on.
Hey, Rush, I want to tell you real quick. I used to work for NBC News in Burbank, California for over 20 years. And this goes back to Herbert Walker Bush. he said something about Dukakis during their campaign, and it was something about the military. And Dukakis demanded an apology. He was so upset about it. He wanted to get Herbert Walker Bush to apologize to the troops. And Bush had a press conference or a press availability the next day and was speaking to people at a rally. And I was in the NBC take-in room where all the feeds come in, okay, from the satellites. And I watched the whole thing. It went on for about a half an hour. And Herbert Walker Bush held up a dictionary, and then he quoted what he had said and gave an eloquent defense of what he said and said why he was not going to apologize to Dukakis. So after it was all cut and they sent the feed to New York, the videotape to New York, the reporter didn't allow Bush's words to be spoken at all. Instead, it was a voiceover, and the reporter said, even with the help of a dictionary, and of course they showed pictures of Bush holding up the dictionary, even with the help of a dictionary, President Bush could not explain why he wouldn't apologize to
It's the same network that doctored the 911 calls in the George Zimmerman case. We know. The saga continues. A man, a legend, a way of life. Our last caller mentioned he is for Rubio because he thinks Rubio is the best chance the Republicans have defeating Hillary if she's not indicted. People keep bringing this up. Tom DeLay, earlier this week, former member of the House from Sugar Land, Texas, nickname was the Hammer. And all he did is what the Democrats do. He was the whip. He whipped people into action. He got votes. He got people to vote the way the leadership wanted. His nickname was the Hammer. The left had their own hammer. Hell, everybody in the left is a hammer, but they used that as a derogatory term on DeLay. Anyway, he's out there saying he's got good friends in the FBI, and his friends are telling him that she's going to be indicted, that it's evidence is mounting, it's worse than anybody even knows, and it's a slam dunk. And I said, please don't say it. No. It's kind of like the jinx. Asked, but please don't say it. Don't say it. Don't get people's hopes up. Darrell Issa is out now, who is chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Darrell Issa said today the FBI would like to indict both Huma Weiner and Hillary Clinton for conducting classified government business on a private email server. The guy, Tom Fritton at Judicial Watch, produced even more information. I mean, there are people that this goes with Joe DeGenevis. My gosh, there are people in the FBI telling me it's voluminous what they've got. It's so bad that if there's not an indictment, that there's going to be a revolt in the FBI. And now people continue to come out and say this in their own words. And people are providing details about what has gone on. One of the stories I read today, and I think it was the Judicial Watch story, it may be something else, I'm not sure, it doesn't matter. The fact is that Hillary knew she was trafficking in classified data and didn't want to be bothered going the secure route. She was having people cut and paste classified data from classified documents and sending that to her in an email so she could traffic in it and send it around. And the analysis that I read today, this stuff is so bad that there are intelligence experts of both parties, by the way, who now have concluded that it's almost impossible that the Chinese were not monitoring her, that the Russians were not monitoring her, that the Iranians were not monitoring. In other words, people are saying it's almost guaranteed that she was hacked. It's guaranteed that all of these people who should not know American diplomatic secrets were able to follow them in real time. The stuff that's trickling out here, and this last part was in a story. Now, it is so bad, this story said, that it may not be possible for Obama to hide this. It may not be possible for Obama to let this slide. It's so deep and it's so bad. And from what's reported, it looks like it really is. Some of this stuff is no question it's criminal. No question it violates every kind of U.S. statute that governs this. And no question that it was brazen and arrogant, and that she just, to hell with the law, I'm bigger than the law. I'm going to do it my way, and the hell with it. It's almost like they're going to know our secrets anyway, so what the hell? Why go through the pretense? But, of course, there was more to it than that. The Clintons are seeking donations from these very outfits, countries, people that lead these countries, for one or another of their foundations. And what they're doing is seeking, and in many cases getting prepayment for Mrs. Clinton's eventual presidency, in which she can reciprocate with policy preferences in their favor. It's insidious. Now here's Darrell Issa, who, and there's another story, a Navy admiral. The stuff that Mrs. Clinton was trafficking in is so top secret, so secure, that a Navy admiral in the intelligence community was not even allowed to see it. It was way beyond his clearance level. That's how bad this all is. And now you've got all of these people either leaking. Well, they're not leaking. Now they're putting their names to it. Delay. Yeah, my friends in the FBI. Another story said that Jim Comey may have to walk. This is if they don't act on this, Comey's got to resign. I mean, it's all over the place, folks. This is more than a trickle. It's become more than drip, 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 drip. It is an avalanche now, or a flood of this stuff. And you couple it with the stories that Bill Clinton, the bloom is off the rose, that he's not drawing crowds, that his favorable number is at 39%. He's never been at 39, other than for a couple of hours during the Lewinsky scandal. What is the reason for the drop? I think the reason for the drop of approval in Clinton, I think part of it's generational. I think there's enough people who become adults that were not adults when all that was going on, and therefore have not been captivated like the baby boomers, particularly Democrats, were during that era where people marveled at Clinton's ability to get away with it and how well he lied, and he had charisma such that if you found yourself in a room with him, he had this ability to make you feel like you were the only one in the room that mattered. And you add to it the news that's out there now about Hillary and the bimbos and how she led the charge to punish them, to stigmatize them. I think it's a cumulative effect. I think it's an accumulation of revelations that are finally sticking. The Teflon has peeled away. Coupled the fact that I think that we've been sold a bill of goods since 2008, maybe even before, about how universally loved and popular Hillary was. But it's all coming to a head now. But this FBI stuff, the fact that more and more people are putting their name, Robert Gates, the former, it might have been him that I was reading talking about all of our quote-unquote enemies who no doubt had access to the data Mrs. Clinton was trafficking in. You've got Issa now, you've got DeLay, you have DeGeneva. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are saying there is so much here that it is almost impossible not to indict her. If something now doesn't happen, these people are going to have all kinds of things to explain to people. What do you mean? You said this was a slam dunk. You said there's so much evidence. There was. I don't understand it. Of course, everybody will understand it. Obama just decides to tell what's-her-face over there not to pull a trigger, Loretta Lynch. And then you've got Biden. Biden's out there lurking. He's assuring, don't sweat it. We got this covered. What he means is, I'm ready to step in should something happen. And then we haven't even talked about Crazy Bernie. Crazy Bernie is stirring things up. Crazy Bernie is rocketing now. He's raising money. He's drawing huge crowds, way beyond anything Hillary can dream of. And the Democrat Party establishment is starting to go after Bernie. Headline, Bernie Sanders meets the Clinton smear machine, and he's furious. This is my old buddy Bill Jacobson at Legal Insurrection. Clinton advocate David Brock is the prime suspect. Media Matters founders found they're out there smearing Bernie Sanders. And, of course, as a Democrat socialist, Bernie's not used to being smeared. He's part of the bunch that smear everybody else. And now the smear machine's been turned on him. He doesn't like it, and he's out there talking about it. He's furious at Brock and at Hillary. And he has a lot of sympathy. This is not the 90s where the Clintons were applauded for smearing their opponents. They were applauded for the bimbo eruptions. They were applauded. They were hailed as great politicians, smarter than the rest of the world in how to deal with adversity. Today, there's a bunch of people that think they're just a bunch of slime balls. They have no appreciation for it, no admiration for it. And many of them are the same outsiders upset with the establishment supporting Bernie as outsiders on the Republican side supporting Trump. It seems to be a universal anger at inside the Beltway establishment elites of both parties. But my only point is, this every time we talk about, like, I think Rubio be the best one to beat Hillary, or I think Cruz, hands down, be the best one to beat Hillary, or Trump could just wipe the floor with Hillary. Depending on the attitude people have, they always now add the caveat, if she's not indicted. It's becoming apparently a much more real possibility in a lot of people's minds. And if half of this is true about who has had access to the documents and data she's been trafficking in, meaning of our enemies, if just half of that's true, the things that the Chi-Coms know about us, and the not have to guess, not have to assume, not have to use spies to find out. They know it because they have had access to whatever Mrs. Clinton was trafficking in. And now ISIS says, yeah, I'd like to see Huma thrown in this crowd too. Oh, the story yesterday was, and this one I believe, the story yesterday was, don't expect Hillary to be indicted, but Huma and Cheryl Mills and some of her support staff, if I were them, I'd be feeling very nervous about now. So that story yesterday was, nah, they'll never go after the big fish. But they got to go get somebody because this is so bad. So they'll go get Hillary's support staff and claim that they had given her plausible deniability, that she didn't know any of this was going on until all of this news started leaking. So that story probably a good indication of the efforts to save her and where they are right now. Back to the phones at Open Line Friday. Jake in Highland, Michigan. I'm glad you called, sir. Welcome to our program here.
Hi, Mr. Limbaugh. Thanks for taking my call. It's an honor to talk to you. I try and listen to you every day. My question is about Donald Trump. I received an article from Catholic Vote, and it's basically talking about why we can't vote for Donald Trump. I'm not old enough to vote yet, but I just like to act like I'm going to vote in the primaries.
How old are you?
But I'm 17.
17.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But this article was talking about basically all these things wrong with Trump, basically, and one of them was like how he cheated on his wife, or two of his wives actually, and how he had he was with different women like every night. He talks about that in his book, and basically how he's like bragging about it. And obviously that's a huge character flaw. So I haven't really heard you talk about that much, and I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, if you talk about that with one, it doesn't apply to just one. Not everybody has those kinds of behaviors in their past, but I would remind you, Jake, in the right places, stuff like that's a resume enhancement. And I'm not trying to be snarky. The Democrat Party, things like that's a resume enhancement. I don't care what Trump's done. He's a piker to Bill Clinton. Now, I don't say that to justify Trump. Don't misunderstand. There's a double standard here. people that tried to say things about it with Bill Clinton, but his supporters came out, no, this proves the guy. It's just sex. It didn't stand in the way of doing his job. His wife didn't care. By evidence, she didn't care. She had to know about it. So everything's fine. Leave him alone. You bunch of Republicans, just a bunch of prudes. You're a bunch of dry balls. You just don't want anybody having any fun. Well, keep going because it isn't going to matter because the American people wish they were like Bill Clinton. And there may have been, depending on the kind of people you're talking about, some truth to that. But there will be some people. The point is, Jake, there probably are already some people who have doubts about Donald Trump for that reason, those reasons, as they relate to character, and as well as his braggadocio behavior and so forth. He doesn't have universal support out there, by any stretch.
Okay, yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying there. That's one.
You're wondering why it's not a disqualifier. How can somebody like that have as much support as he does? Or what is your question about it?
Well, I basically just I wanted to know what you had to say about it. And at first I was kind of surprised that I'd never heard like the liberal media bring it up at all. But then I was kind of thinking about it, and I realized then they'd kind of be like downsizing Clinton too if they criticized Trump for doing what he did back then. And so, yeah, I just wasn't really, I've never been a Trump supporter, but, like, I've never hated him either. I was kind of, like, in between. So I just don't know if that's the type of person who I'd want in office, I guess.
Well, there are a lot of people happy to hear you say it, because one of the things that has been happening in our country, even before you were born, you're 17, is what a lot of people refer to as the decay or the rot in the culture, and how what used to be taboo in terms of words you can say on TV, for example, or behaviors on TV that you can televise, now are standard, no big deal, and worse. So that there are people look that there is a slow erosion of the kinds of morality and cultural standards that there used to be in the country. And a lot of people think that the erosion and the rot and the decay has bled over and explains a lot of what's wrong in politics. So you're not alone in your point of view. It's just people of voting age today, it's in many people's minds, it's something that's been determined here to not be a disqualifier. Not long ago, it would have been. Not long ago, something like this would have been a disqualifier. Negative ads run about it would have finished somebody off, and it would have been rendered a campaign dead on arrival. Now, it's not so much. So, and if this interests you, the name, the Federalist Papers, the number escapes me, but the character of the executive, meaning the president, was written about extensively by James Madison in the Federalist Papers, and he wrote extensively why it's the number one, or should be, and was back then the number one factor. And you might, as you grow older, try to find it. And I'll dig the number up, and I'll put it up at rushlimbaugh.com. Just a matter of reaching in the deep, dark depths of my memory. But I appreciate the call, Jake. Thanks very much. We'll be back here in just a second. Do not go away. Open Line Friday, one big, exciting, and busy broadcast hour remains. We'll take a brief little time out here at the top. We'll come back and head straight into it, full speed. Stay right where you are. We are back, El Rushmo, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have, with half my brain tied behind my back, just to make it fair.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Yeah, one big hour remains here for you to talk about whatever you want. I know it's going to be the debate, the campaign. That's fine. We'll try to squeeze as many as we can in our remaining hour here. And a couple things soundbite-wise, and some accompanying news stories I want to touch on. 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. There was one thing I noticed. I need to observe this. One thing I noticed during the entire day yesterday, the day before, about the possibility that Trump might not show up. Now, obviously, Fox News was concerned, and they did not hold back their concern. O'Reilly's got Trump on the night before, begging him to show up. Fox News was engaged, apparently in negotiations all day. So they were making it known they really would like Trump to be there. It was not something that they didn't care about. But the RNC, did you notice that the drive-by media, well, not the drive-by so much, but the Republican establishment didn't seem all that concerned about this? And you know why that is, don't you? Oh, because this set the table to take out Ted Cruz, who they really hate. Remember now, the establishment's out there saying, we think we could deal with Trump. Trump, yeah, he'll make deals with it. Trump's not a rigid ideologue, meaning he's not a conservative. But Cruz is somebody we can't do business with. Cruz, if he wins, he's going to be straight down the board conservative through and through. We don't want any of that. Trump's absence put Cruz in the center of the stage, which meant that all the fire was going to be aimed at Ted Cruz. So Trump not showing up actually facilitated the desires of the Republican establishment. Well, it furthered the possibility of their desires. I mean, I'm not saying the RNC got together with Fox and said, hey, take out Cruz, because everybody's going to be aiming at Cruz anyway. Of all the people there, he was the front runner. Trump not there. You can hit Trump all day long, but it's arguable whether you'll do much damage. But you can go after Cruz if you want. And a lot of people did. Rubio did, understandably so. The moderators were going after everybody. It's just the way the moderators have decided to do these things. We talked about that earlier. So it did set Cruz up for headlines today that he did not come through. He did not do quite as well. This is the kind of thing the RNC or the Republican establishment doesn't mind seeing at all. Just an observation. And I don't think there's any question about it. I thought Cruz had a couple of really great moments. Rubio did too. Their story here in Vanity Fair. You might say, Vanity Fair? Who gives a rush? Who cares a whit about Vanity Fair? Well, to a lot of the elites and the big clique guys in pop culture, Vanity Fair is like a Bible. And their headline, A Lost Republican Field Struggles to Debate Without Donald Trump. Subheadline is, Without the gravitational pull of the reality star, the candidates suddenly became aimless. As Thursday night's Republican presidential debate progressed, it became clear that the Trumpster had pulled the rest of the Republican candidates into his gravitational well, locking them into near permanent orbit around his personality. Without Trump, who boycotted the Fox News event over a disagreement with one of its hosts, that's not why he boycotted the thing. The rest of the candidates seemed confused at how to define themselves on their own terms or to confront each other without the front-runner present. So this story clearly making these Republican candidates on the stage last night look like they were lost dwarves. Big Daddy wasn't around. Didn't know how to act without Big Daddy on the stage. The writer here is Tina Nguyen. She's Vietnamese, Nguyen, pronounced Nguyen. A couple of pull quotes. Nowhere was this more evident than in Megyn Kelly's ruthless questioning, utterly devastating Rubio and Cruz, with pointed video clips of them flip-flopping on positions like amnesty and legalization of undocumented immigrants. Cruz and Rubio likely anticipated those attacks from each other and probably hoped that the drama of their televised clash would differentiate each other. But they had no idea how to communicate a clear, unique answer to questioning from a third party. Did you get that impression? I mean, the clear opinion here is that Cruz and Rubio might have been ready for one or the other to come after them, but they were lost when Megyn Kelly came after them. Totally lost, totally unprepared for Megyn Kelly's then and now video. I don't think they came across as lost. There might have been a brief moment of gulp. What the hell's this? But the recovery, Rubio's recovery, Cruz's recovery on this stuff was stellar, to the point that Megyn Kelly had to admit to Cruz after the debate on her show that after she had done exhaustive research, guess what? She had learned that he was right all along, that he had been trying to poison the legislation with amendments that would expose it for what it was. A lot of people say, well, thanks for nothing. You conclude after the attempted destruction that he was right. Another pull quote, in a normal cycle, candidates could hone those positions on air in front of millions of people, learning what the electorate responds to best and how to forge their own narrative. But in this cycle, the majority of candidates have been forced to spend each debate attacking Trump's temperament and lack of leadership, slow to realize that his positions resonated with most of the country. Excuse me, that's not exactly what happened here. I mean, you can say that the candidates spent the debate attacking Trump's temperament, but that's because that's where the moderators took them. Remember, that's what Cruz at the CNBC debate finally stood up in exasperation. Look, this is pointless. In the last 30 minutes, you have accused him of this, him of that, somebody over here are doing that, me of this. But see, they played by the rules. They followed the rules. The moderators took them where they wanted them to go. They went there until finally somebody stood up. Well, here's an example. This is Megyn Kelly opening the debate with a question about Trump, and it is for Ted Cruz.
Let's address the elephant not in the room tonight. Donald Trump has chosen not to attend this evening's presidential debate. What message do you think that sends to the voters of Iowa?
Let me say, I'm a maniac, and everyone on this stage is stupid, fat, and ugly. And Ben, you're a terrible surgeon. Now that we've gotten the Donald Trump portion out of the way.
I heard a lot of laughter there. I had some people say, Cruz ought to leave the humor alone. He's not a funny guy. That kind of worked. What are you looking at me like that for? You don't think it worked? I mean, it didn't work for you? Okay. Well, then let's try this. This is Brett Baer, and he's asking a moment of Jeb. But Dr. Krauthammer, by the way, Dr. Krauthammer said that this was Jeb's best night so far, except the last debate, which was his best night so far. And then the night before that was his best night so far. I think this. Dr. Krauthammer watched the debate. He said that this is, but he's the same way. He said that no question, hands down, this is Jeb's best debate. In fact, Jeb might have finally triumphed in a debate. I think Dr. Krauthammer said. Let's see here. So it is Brett Baer. Says, Governor Bush, it's hard for anyone of your pedigree to avoid being called establishment. But isn't that part of the problem in this race, that three others on this stage are splitting the mainstream Republican vote and thereby possibly handing the nomination over to an anti-establishment candidate?
I kind of miss Donald Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. We always had such a loving relationship during these debates and in between and the tweets. I kind of miss him. I wish he was here. Everybody else was in the witness protection program when I went after him on behalf of what the Republican cause should be. Look, I'm an establishment because my dad, the greatest man alive, was president of the United States, and my brother, who I adore as well, is a fantastic brother, was president. Fine, I'll take it. I guess I'm part of the establishment because Barbara Bush is my mom. I'll take that, too.
No. Right now, see, he admits being part of the establishment because his parents are part of the establishment. And since they were part of the establishment, how could he not be? And he's proud of his parents, and so therefore he's going to be the establishment. The question was, you're not the only one up there. There's a bunch of them up here. Aren't you afraid you guys might split the vote and leave it open for Trump? Oh, no, I miss Donald. I miss Trump. He was a little teddy bear to me. Next, this is the Today Show today, Savannah Guthrie, speaking with Chuck Todd about the Republican debate last night. And Savannah Guthrie said, and normally at this time in the morning I would ask who won the debate, but today I'm going to say who won the night. Did Trump's big gamble pay off, Chuck?
I think it did, and the reason I think it paid off because nobody on that debate stage was able to take advantage of the moment. That was an opportunity for a couple of the front runners to come out and really go at Trump. He wasn't there to respond, and they chose not to do it. If you're Trump, you're sitting there going, well, this was great. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, the two guys chasing me, ended up beating each other up, and oh, by the way, were the targets of everybody else.
So then Willie Geist, who's also on the show, said, hey, a lot of people thought that Ted Cruz, because he's running so close with Trump in Iowa, would have a target on his back. How did he handle that pressure last night, Chuck?
I think he struggled with it early. In particular, he was the one getting a lot of incoming. I thought he looked a little testy at times. His jokes fell a little flat. His little tweaking of the moderators didn't seem to go over well. If anything, Rubio may be nipping at his heels a bit. This may be a closer three-way race here than we thought.
You know, I marvel at this. I try to put myself in the position of people that are going to caucus on Monday night. And by the way, we haven't discussed this. I just assumed everybody knows what happens at a caucus. But maybe it would be worthwhile just a short little illustration here. As it differs from going up to vote. When you show up at your polling place to vote, you go in there, you do it in private. You mark your ballot, as many of them as you can get, if you're a Democrat, and you turn them in and you leave. You get a little sticker saying, I voted. You feel like a great citizen. You walk around, you peel the sticker off. When you walk out and get in your car, you go home, tell everybody you vote. When you go caucus, you go into what could be somebody's living room, a gymnasium, could be a library, any number of places, and all kinds of people from your district are in there. And people of varying degrees of intensity, supporting various numbers of candidates, start working on you. And you start caucusing. You start talking about it. And it's like being on a jury. You go in there and you start examining the evidence and who's for who and why, and people work on you and try to change your mind, talk you out of what you're thinking. You might do the same thing, and it goes on for a little while, an hour or two. And that's why everybody talks about the ground game. Having a big ground operation is so important there, because you've got to turn out people that are going to show up to the caucus for you, committed to you, because everybody representing other candidates is going to try to shame you out of it, or talk you out of it, threaten you out of it, or what have you. And then, who is it? Bernie Sanders, I think. No, it's the Hillary camp, is accusing Crazy Bernie of bussing in a bunch of college students from out of state to show up at various caucus and pollute things, much as Obama did in 2000, which he did. That's precisely what Obama did. And he ended up winning the Hawkeye caucus when he wasn't really thought to be in the position of winning it. I mean, back then, Hillary was going to just, even then, she was going to run the table. So as I listen to these guys analyze the debates, it's like, here's Chuck Todd. Well, I don't know. I think Cruz struggled with it early. It's as though, imagine you're a caucus goer and you're going to go for Cruz. And you like Cruz because you like his issues, you like his temperament, you like this. So you want the guy to do well in a debate. You watch a debate and maybe he's not doing well, but you really want him to. I don't know that people analyze it the way these guys do. You know, he didn't start out strong. Man, those jokes that he tried to fill flat. I can't caucus for Cruz. I don't think it works that way. It's the way they look at it. It's the way these horse race types look at it. This is like trying to analyze the outcome of a football game in the first quarter by judging who's breaking the huddle fastest. Who seems to have the momentum? Well, there's going to be a whole bunch of momentum shifts before the game is over. But it's not new. It's just I've always been interested, perplexed at the same time in the way these professionals sit there and analyze these debates or performances half hour by half hour, 5 minutes by 5 minutes, answer by answer, as though this is how people are watching and their minds can be changed, when in reality most people's minds, if they're going to be changed, are going to be changed by others at the caucus, leaning on them, pressuring them, what have you. Got to take a break. We'll be back. Don't go away. And it's back to the phones with Rush Limbaugh meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. This is Bob in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Hello.
Hello. I'd like to thank you for taking my call today.
You bet, sir.
I think you did an excellent job of explaining phase one of Obama's plan to protect Hillary Clinton. Phase two is the biggie. Somewhere in the White House, closed door, no recording devices, will be a meeting with the President, the Attorney General, and Secretary Clinton. She will tearfully apologize for a lapse of judgment in the handling of her emails. It'll be recognized that she is remorseful and that she has endured intolerable mental anguish over this. They will grant her a presidential pardon, expunge her record, and seal the record to where nobody can mention it anymore.
Does she still run for president in this scenario?
Yeah, and if somebody tries to bring up all this good stuff, she'll sue them for slander because it never happened.
So, you're just trying to be funny here. You're trying to catch me on a serious day, trying to be funny and loosen things up here.
Well, as far as the lawsuit, yeah, that's kind of a gag. But in the not too distant future, I can actually see a presidential pardon to help cover her to where she can become president.
Why would they go? Why would they do that?
Well, as you said, there's all kinds of people in the FBI and other legal circles going crazy trying to figure out why nothing's been done about these
Yeah, but
serious.
This is Bob, thank you. We will continue. Stay with us. Okay. Now, about our last caller's theorem, that essentially what's going to happen is that Hillary will be dragged into the White House. There'll be Obama in there and Loretta Lynch, and that she will apologize, and she'll say she's sorry, and she wasn't aware, and so forth, and they will announce she came in and apologized, and Obama will pardon her, presidential pardon, for any and all future acts, crimes related to this. And then she will seal a record. They'll seal a record, but it never happened. And she'll go run for president, and that'll be that. Folks, I know Obama has said he doesn't think Hillary has done anything wrong. He's on the record saying that a number of times. Now, we learned today the last batch of Hillary's email is not going to be released until the end of February, which is way past the original judge's deadline. And the State Department's saying, no, we're going to hold these back. It'd be a little too volatile to release them now. They're claiming they've got built-in delays and there's all kinds of things stopping them and preventing them. And now get this. Even Fox just ran this, and I've got this. This story is just been added to the mix. That Hillary's emails are too damaging, security-wise, to release. They're so bad. They contain such secrets. There are such transgressions. It is so bad, we can't release them. It would compromise national security like it's never been compromised to release them. Of course, if that's true, they already have compromised national security because it means that our enemies have already seen it. So them trying, these are so bad. This is so volatile. This is such juicy stuff. We can't afford to release this stuff and make it public, which would tend to convey a cover-up. But again, I'm just, look, question always comes down to this. I can't tell you the number of times, I asked you this last week, how many times, for those of you who are adults and were adults back in the 90s, how many times in all of these past 25, 26 years have you been led to believe by one story or another that we're going to get the Clintons? This is it. They're not going to slither out of this one. This, whatever it is. This is Hillary stepped in and out. How many times? More times than you can count on two hands. And each and every time, nothing ever comes of it. Why should that change? We have a Democrat totalitarian regime running the country. A member of that regime is in line to be the next president. Why on earth would that totalitarian regime take out one of its own ranking members? And the only answer you can provide is that the current leader of the totalitarian regime doesn't want Hillary anywhere near his totalitarian agenda after he's gone. It doesn't make sense that the Obama regime would take out one of their own. But Rush, he doesn't want her to be president. Well, there's all kinds of ways to have done this before we've gotten this far. But to me, it's the old experience guided by intelligence angle. How many times, honestly, folks, how many times have you been led to believe that somebody has got the goods on Hillary? Whitewater, Robert Redbone, and all the cattle futures, the Rose law firm billing records showing up out of clean air in the maps room in the White House, Monica Lewinsky, bimbo eruptions, Hillary Clinton running the show, Hillary Clinton lying about sneaking past sniper fire wherever it was, and all the others, lying to grandeur, all these other things that I have forgotten. How many of those? This is it. And nothing ever happens. So common sense would lead you to conclude nothing's going to come of this either. And each of these previous incidents where at one point or another, somebody thought, this is it, we finally got the goods. We got that characteristic here. All these people who claim to have seen the evidence the FBI has accrued. We get Tom DeLay saying the FBI, oh yeah, my FBI buddies tell me this is bad. It's a slam dunk. Darrell Ice is out there saying, I not only want to indict Hillary, I want to go get Huma. Joe DeGeneva, let me tell you something. This evidence, this is so bad that if they don't indict, there's going to be a revolt. It's the same stuff. We've heard all this before, just about different things. We've been there. We've done that, and nothing ever happens to them. The smart bet, the common sense place to put your money here is nothing's going to happen to her here either. Here's Jude in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Hi, great to have you on the program.
Hi, Rush. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thank you.
Oh, what an honor. I thought I would never get through. It's taken over 3 years to just let you hear about what has happened in my life, which is great.
Well, here you are. Thank you.
Proves the liberal left theory on you?
Okay.
My wife, and now she's 27, but at the time she was 24, and when I had met her, when she was about 23, 24, I always talked about Rush Limbaugh. I listened to Rush Limbaugh all the time, and she was horrified. She goes, why do you listen to him? He's a fool, blah, blah, blah.
But had she ever listened?
I'm sorry, sir?
Had she ever listened to me?
Exactly. No, she had not.
Yeah.
And I remembered at that time, ironically, you were talking about how the media says that you scare away 24-year-old women. So I laughed at the irony of that situation. So I challenged my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I said, hey, will you listen to him? And she reluctantly agreed, and would you imagine, in 1 week's time, she was hooked. Absolutely hooked.
No kidding. Normally it takes 6. We encourage 6 weeks here. But you pulled it off. She did 1 week.
1 week. 1 week. The first 2 days or so, I didn't hear much out of her. And on her lunch, she would listen, from the monologue from like 12 to 12:30. And she's like, man, he's making sense. He's making sense. And sure enough, you're a regular topic. And for 3 years, I just wanted to let you know.
It had to be culture shock. What do you think she thought she was going to hear? I mean, she hears all this, the BS they say about this program.
MSNBC. She's since become so far right-wing. I'm just absolutely proud of her. She's a big Cruz girl and Trump supporter also at the same time. Just like
I'm happy for you. I'm happy out there for you, Jude. That's because that's going to make a big difference in the relationship going forward.
Is there a chance I can ask you for a favor?
Sure. What is it?
It's taken over 3 years. I've just been dying to ask you. Is there a way I could get an autographed photo of yourself?
Do I give autograph? I sell them like Trump does.
And where would I be able to purchase one?
Don't sell them. I don't sell them.
Okay.
Here, hang on. Mr. Snerdley will get your... we don't normally do it this way. Do you understand why? Because now everybody is going to ask for one.
Oh, yes.
And I can't say yes to everybody or...
Hey, you could look at, it's a baptismal gift for my wife in a sense. How's that? Since you brought her over to the dark side.
How long have you guys are married or not?
Yes.
Do you have any crumb crunchers?
What is that?
Kids.
Yes, I'm actually holding my 11-week-old son on my chest in a little...
Okay, then I'll tell you what we're going to do. Here's the way we're going to do this.
Okay.
You hang on, and Snerdley will get your FedEx address, and we're going to send you some Rush.
You don't have to do that, but thank you.
Going to send you some Rush Revere stuff.
Oh, thank you so much.
For
Rush.
your daughter, the little
that,
cuddly Liberty doll, which is a great
Thank
thing.
you.
And
we absolutely love you. My father turned me on to you, but I didn't start listening until I was about 18, and now I'm 29. I listen to you every day, almost, if I can, depending on my work schedule.
Well,
but I always go to rushlimbaugh.com, check out the transcripts, etc.
That's awesome.
We just absolutely love you. You're the best.
I can't tell you how flattered I am, how much I appreciate it. So hang up. We'll send your daughter. She'll grow into this stuff. She'll eventually like the Liberty doll. I mean, she may even like that now. And we'll send some stuff as audio versions of the books and real books signed, and throw a picture in there or something. So you just hang on. This is how we'll do it. As we get our hooks into another future American adult. One child at a time here on the EIB. Speak of the devil, White House press secretary Josh Earnest and the Daily Brief just moments ago. Fox News Channel White House correspondent Kevin Corke said to the White House press secretary, "Can you say with certainty and confidence that Secretary Clinton will not be indicted?"
That will be a decision that is made by the Department of Justice and prosecutors over there. What I know that some officials over there have said is that she is not a target of the investigation. That does not seem to be the direction that it's trending.
So he says she's not a target. She's not a target of the investigation. That, folks, that cannot be true. Target, subject, person of interest, there's all these different characterizations of bad people that the good guys pursue. Subject, a lot of people think subject and target are the same thing, and they're not. They can be at times. Person of interest, subject. There's no way she can't be a subject. You know, this is just some people trying to say, what they're trying to tell you is she's not a target. If she wasn't a target, they would have said she wasn't a target. They're trying to make you think that by saying, well, she's not a subject. She's not only a subject, she's a person of interest. Don't fall for this. This has been said, by the way. It was a couple of weeks ago, I think, that somebody said she's not a subject. That's so multi-purposed in U.S. attorney jargon. Here's Sal in upstate New York as we head back to the phones on Open Line Friday. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Thanks for taking the call. Hey, question. I'll preface this saying I am a Trump supporter for a lot of reasons, not just the boldness of the man. But from last night's debate, I watched it open-minded, hoping to learn something new from any of the other 7 candidates. And I got to be honest, other than the fact that we need a watchdog or a truth tracker to determine who's telling the truth between Rubio and Cruz, everything or mostly everything that was said during that debate has been said in the prior 6 debates. So we get all these people on all these talk shows, CNN, Fox News, whatever they may be, saying, well, now this was a substantial debate with topic. But again, I didn't come away with anything new. And my question for you is, can you give the audience, and you may have covered this already, and I apologize, but what did you learn differently that you did not know from prior debates about these candidates?
Well, I never learn anything in them, Sal, because I know more than the people in the debates know. So it's always a challenge for me. I never learn anything. I mean, I learn policy-wise. I may learn a personality characteristic or something I didn't know. But these debates, your point is well taken. People, when you're looking for something new, you're looking for characteristics. If somebody take the occasion of the front runner being gone to really step up and command it last night. Those are the kind of things you'll look for. Because policy-wise, you pretty much know it. And for example, Jeb Bush has been Jeb Bush for whatever you said, 6, 7 debates. What could he do to change your opinion to him last night? What could any of them do? What could Chris Christie do that you all? I think these debates are largely for the networks and the rules, the game. The two sides work together, the media and the political organizations, the candidates, people, to keep the enterprise going. In terms of learning something new policy-wise, I don't think it's about that. I think it's about consistency and the opportunity to continue to expose what you believe to new people. With each new debate, you hope the audience is bigger or made up of different people, such as in Iowa. Maybe people watched last night that haven't watched before because of the caucuses coming on Monday.
Thank you, Rush.
So that's actually a good point. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Kasich's dad was a mailman. I'm not sure if I knew that. I'm kidding. Actually kidding. It's actually a good question. If you look at Frank Luntz's focus groups, those are all about what did you learn that you didn't know, or what caused you to change your mind. So for some people, there are things they see that they haven't seen before, supposedly, or things that they learn. I wasn't trying to be flippant. My job and my career, whatever, knowing who these people are is something that I have. There's nothing that I don't know about them that I need to know, policy-wise, things that would determine whether or not I would vote for them. But not everybody spends the time that I do in this regard, because it is my job. So I didn't mean to be flippant. I didn't mean to swat the question away. I mean, I do know more. I'm convinced, and I'm a writer, than a whole hell of a lot of people running for president, too. But so are you. That's the frustrating thing, isn't it? Okay, so when we get back here next time, it's going to be Monday. It's going to be the day of the Hawkeye. And the AccuWeather people saying a big snowstorm's headed into Iowa. But not really until Tuesday. But some of the early stages of it may happen Monday night, which could affect turnout. We'll just have to see. It's a long ways away from now. Anyway, folks, I hope you have a great weekend. And be back here, loaded, revved, and ready as we will be on Monday. Thanks so much.